The other day I was kind of thinking to myself about how anime is often recommended, uh, despite it having such a rough start. I was thinking about some of the comments that I was getting on my Tower of God video about how like the first season is all a prelude. Then I was remembering Dragon Ball Super, how the first 30 or so episodes are all retellings of movies that were already made, or stories that were already made in movie format, and frankly are presented in much better form. And how, people who were watching at the time, were telling people, no, 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 you gotta watch, it's gonna get better, it's gonna get better. And and then, people who are coming later on and are like, oh, there's this Goku Black character, what's going on? And I was like, all right, I'm gonna start watching Dragon Ball Super. And a lot of people were like, okay, well, it's gonna be rough when you first get in, but you gotta just get through the first 30 or so episodes. And how we constantly feel the need to justify rough beginnings to get to the promise of a better product. And how we do these things to ourselves. And so I was thinking about all of this, and then I was also thinking about how whenever I rewatch a show, and not necessarily an anime, but if I'm rewatching my favorite TV shows or whatever, I usually just tend to skip the first couple seasons. I'd like to just jump in the middle of somewhere, where all of the characters or all of the actors are pretty much set into their roles, and the character traits are pretty much defined and just brought all the way up here already, rather than when they're first starting and they're feeling around the room. I like doing that just because, I mean, a lot of the times with the shows like Scrubs and That 70s Show and How I Met Your Mother, or whatever TV show it is, I tend to just get in there because I don't really like the beginnings. I don't like, feeling it out first. Those episodes tend to be really good regardless, because otherwise they wouldn't have got to the point that they're at, But as far as I'm concerned with these TV shows that I often just rewatch, it's usually just comfort watching, something where I can sit back in front of the TV and play a video game while the TV rolls in the background. I'm not usually paying too much attention. I'm just letting it play out while I'm, playing a game or whatever. And so I think that there's probably a mash of those people, and I don't know for certain. I mean, I don't want to say that this is the definite reason why it is what it is, but this is just kind of a theory just based off my experiences. But I think that this is the reason why we tend to excuse shows that start off really rough and eventually pick up and get better, because it tends to be that way. There's something there that kind of causes in the beginning, and we latch on to this tiny little thing about the show that we like, that charmed us, that gets us invested, and we hold out hoping that it gets better, and sometimes it does. And for us, a lot of us, it's enough to recommend the show despite all these other glaring problems that we're aware of. We have recognized the flaws, but we convince ourselves otherwise, and we try to convince others too. If you like Dragon Ball, you're gonna like these characters. It's more Goku and it's more Krillin and Vegeta, But there's all these little things here that not so great. But just don't worry. Wait till they get to the new stuff, And I think that that's probably the problem that happened with Dragon Ball Super, is that there were already 2 movies that were being retold in Super, and frankly were much better. at least presentation wise, they were much better because they were in one narrative that ran between an hour and 30 or whatever. And now in TV format, you have to sit through 20 minutes of 13 episodes, you know, just to see the same story. And that's probably what was the glaring issue with Dragon Ball Super. But you know, with other things that people tend to like and want to recommend to others, and I think that the reason that it's because of this is because a lot of us come from the sitcom world where characters are still being defined. You know, the quirks haven't been established yet, and you know, a lot of people tell others to just watch the first episode of The Office for context and then just skip to season 2 because season 1 isn't very good. And I've heard the same thing. I've actually heard Aziz Ansari say the same thing about Parks and Recreation, where like, yeah, well, you know, season 1 wasn't very good.
Especially like comedy shows, the first few episodes, it's usually kind of figured out. Like you watch like the first few episodes of Seinfeld, it's way different than what it became. I think it's just a matter of like figuring out the characters and figuring out what the show is, you know.
It's because we come from these viewing habits where you turn on the TV and it's some syndication of The Simpsons or That 70s Show or whatever random TV show you were watching, Futurama, you know, Rick and Morty. You know, it's a random episode, you just throw it on. And that's the thing though about those TV shows, is that because they're sitcoms, they're usually just standalone episodes. There isn't a serialization going on. You don't need to really know the characters, don't really need to know the arcs that are going on, because it usually is resolved within those first 20 minutes versus, you know, the serialized format that we've come to know and obsess over these most recent years. As you know, anime's been doing it forever though, but this is just a little bit of food for thought. I was thinking about it the other day and just thought I'd make a video about it and see what you guys think about it, and let me know if you guys have any theories about why it is that we're able to excuse shows that are that start off really poorly and then eventually pick up and swear by them despite taking such a long time to get that ball rolling. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye, Joe.